Welcome everyone. While the number of participants is rising, I welcome you to this BioAgora event, Connecting Biodiversity Knowledge and Decision Making. Good to have you with us. This is an important day, an important moment, because this is the first ever event covering all Horizon biodiversity-related research projects. Something that you could call really a true agora of people and projects joining in to help share their information and learn about what BioAgora is. And indeed, you all have been very active in joining. We have this agora building up. We have a great turnout. I see the number rising to 68 at the moment, but we have over 180 registered participants covering more than 100 projects. This is massive, this is fantastic, a great turnout indeed, and a clear expression of interest. I think it shows that, as we've seen in the survey when you registered for this event, in the survey, most of you indicated that you haven't heard about BioAgora, but are very eager to learn about it. Many of you have indicated that you know about BioAgora, but to various extents. So this moment comes at a very good time for you to get acquainted with BioAgora and with the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and the Science Service that we're developing, and to help you put your research to the forefront of EU biodiversity policy. So great to have you with us. Before we start just to remind you that this event is going to be recorded, and that it will be available afterwards on the BioAgora YouTube channel. And as said, this event is called an information event. Obviously, this is to inform you about the Knowledge Center and about BioAgora and how you can get involved. But it's also an event for you to inform us, for you to share with us your experiences, elements from your projects that may contribute to building the science service or this biodiversity knowledge agora, or the kind of elements that you feel are relevant for this audience. Just share it with us, and I'll let you know how you can do that in a moment. And thus to also help gradually build this biodiversity knowledge agora. We have a very short and sweet agenda. It's a few speakers only, because the idea is that we really have good interaction, so quite a lot of time available for you to interact and to join in and to share. We have three speakers: Grégoire Dubois from the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity at the JRC. We have Kaisa Korhonen-Kurki and Marie van der Wallen from BioAgora. I'll introduce them later in a bit more detail, but also want to share with you that we have a larger team of BioAgora behind the scenes, a larger team in the background that is supporting us today, that is on standby to respond to your questions if you have them, or to react to any comments, or to give more detail on individual work packages, tasks. I guess most of you know the jargon of the Horizon projects. So we all have these kind of task and work package leaders as well. And we have a great support team as well, joining us to support us with the chat, with the social media, with the Q&A and what have you. My name is Ben Delbare. I'm an independent ecological consultant and also a BioAgora partner. And I join in one of the communication work packages and lead the work on the business plan. And I'm the host for this event today. So welcome again. As I said, you can interact. The simple tools that most of you are very familiar with. Meanwhile, we have on the bottom of your screen, the main tool to interact is the Q&A component, which is where you can put your questions or comments or suggestions or ideas. I will try to, throughout this event, to pick the key questions. You can vote also in the Q&A. Vote for certain questions that you feel these are really important, really relevant for everyone. So we'll pick those first. We may not have time to cover all the questions. Obviously, we'll try to respond to them in writing, either now through the chat or after the event, if there's any questions remaining. Towards the end of the event, we'll have more time for questions and answers. That will also be the time where you may be able to raise your hand. You will then be given the floor by our core team to open your not your camera. Camera is not possible, but your microphone, so that then you can pose your question, and the people from our background team will then be able to reply to your questions, hopefully. We'll have a few polls as well, just to get your opinion on some very basic questions. And the chat function is not able for you to join in, but it will be used to inform you of certain elements throughout the event as well. A call for all of you to also share, not just to stick within this bubble of a large group though, but to have this Agora building, share information about this event, about BioAgora, about what you learned, about how your project can contribute to the usual project channels that you have through the social media. I think in the chat there will be instructions on which hashtags you can use and which channels you can use. So please use them and spread the word, help build this Agora. I think that would be a good moment to maybe first try our first poll. I've developed a few very simple polls, and actually the very first one is a bit in relation to the background of this project. I'm not sure if you see the poll now, but if you can launch the poll, then I ask you to vote for or to just rate your background knowledge on the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030. On a scale of from 0 to 10, what is your experience or your level of knowledge of this strategy? 0 obviously meaning never heard of it. And 10 could be, I can dream it out loud, or I've written it. So I'll leave you a short while to put in your answers, to have a feel of how well this group is aware of the biodiversity strategy for 2030. As you're doing that, I see the magpie sitting outside. You have a magpie nest nearby, and actually they have hard labor. One of the magpies lost his tail. It's a bit pity, but so how are we doing with the votes?
1 minute into the voting, we have 97 out of 114 responses.
Okay, so could you show me the results? Then we can already have a look at how well we're doing with this poll. Okay, there we go. So, okay, at least everyone says there's at least a little knowledge of the biodiversity strategy, going from 1, 2, even up to 9, or if it's down, can I see even 10? So I think we have the writers of the biodiversity policy, biodiversity strategy with us, or at least people for which this is daily bread. I didn't tell you, but among our participants, we obviously also have people from the Commission, from a number of DGs, Directorates General. But good to see that actually the larger share of the votes is in the higher end. So I take it that most of you have a pretty good knowledge of the biodiversity strategy. Thanks for that. Then just one more poll before we go to the first speaker. It's a bit of a related poll, but you will hear that the background of BioAgora is on the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, KCBD. By the way, if we use too many acronyms, just ask us in the Q&A, what does this acronym mean? In this case, the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. Same question, what is your level of knowledge on this KCBD? Assuming that meanwhile you got the hang of doing this, can we have a look at the polls? Results.
Ben. So 94 people voted out of 118, and I'm sharing the results.
That's great. Look, we have quite a different picture here. That's interesting to see. So or people in this group have never heard or have very little understanding or knowledge of the KCBD. So that's excellent. That's a great introduction. Thank you for this, Paul. A great introduction for our first speaker. We have with us Grégoire Dubois. He's a manager of the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, there he goes, at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission in ISPRA. Grégoire is an expert in science policy interaction, geoinformatics, and spatial statistics, and he has a PhD in geostatistics from the University of Lausanne. Grégoire will present to us the science service and introduce the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. Grégoire, are you with us? The floor
Yes,
is yours.
good morning, everyone. Let me try sharing the slides, which should be. That should work. Do you see my slides?
It's coming. Yes, there they are. Thank you.
Good. Yes, good morning from ISPRA, Italy. I'm working for the Joint Research Center, indeed, which is the European Commission's in-house science service. Its headquarters are in Brussels, but we are spread over different countries in different directorates. And the one dealing with sustainable resources is based in Ispra in Italy. And this is where the KCBD, you know, we all love acronyms in the European Commission, where the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity is based. Where is it coming from? Well, the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity was actually one of the first actions, if not the first action of the EU Biodiversity Strategy. It was launched in October 2020 with the following three main objectives. It's to track and assess progress by the EU and its partners regarding the targets set by the Biodiversity Strategy. It's to foster cooperation and partnership, and to support the policy developments. We are in-house science service. We provide science and technical service. You have here below the link to our website. I stress the fact that we are we are the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, not on biodiversity. And this is quite important detail, because I really see it as also as our mission to make sure that biodiversity is on the agenda of all the policy services that are impacting biodiversity or impacted by biodiversity loss. So in many cases, actually, we have to really promote the importance and the value of biodiversity to our colleagues. In terms of governance, we are a service for the European Commission, not for the member states, not for any other bodies. We are really supporting the Commission. We are reporting officially to the EU biodiversity platforms and the subgroups that are also managed and involving member states. So this is where the member states can make comments on the indicators that we present in our dashboard monitoring progress. But we are supporting the Commission. We are a small team, actually. We are around 12 people, including the external consultants who are developing the information systems that we have. We work very closely with the European Environmental Agency, which is gathering the information from the member states to help us report progress towards the targets. So the biodiversity information systems of Europe is actually part of the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. And because we are working at the Joint Research Center, it's quite a large research center, but the Joint Research Center is supposed to cover all EU policies, absolutely everything. So it's from cybersecurity to defense to climate change to renewable energies. So in biodiversity, we are actually only quite a few people at the GRC, and whatever the situation, you will never have, even with thousands of researchers, it's impossible to cover all the complex aspects of biodiversity. So the idea was to get support from an additional element in this landscape. And the idea was with DG Environment and the DD to set up this science service for biodiversity to get access to your expertise. I mean, I'm speaking to the people here in this course who are mainly researchers. You have expertise that we don't always have. Sometimes we are just busy with other things. So we need to be able to reach out to other networks and other actors. The main tracks, the main work that we do is we are really doing science for policy, where the interface between the scientific community and the policymakers. There's no voodoo science there, but this is something that is usually typically missing in the scientific communities. Is people usually believe that writing the paper is it's the job done for the researcher. Actually, it's the starting point. So we really need to make sure that we pass messages that are concise, transformed in a way that can be understood by the policymakers. So you need a translating system between the scientific community and the policymakers, and vice versa. The policymakers need to be able to pass their questions to the scientific community in a way that it can be understood properly by the scientists. So the main streams of work, the first one is certainly to track progress towards the targets, is to highlight the interlinkages between the policies and the topics on biodiversity and trade, biodiversity and renewable energies, biodiversity and health, all these aspects, and agriculture. I mean, all these aspects are extremely complicated, and we need to be able to really understand how all these elements are interacting with each other to make sure that all the policies are at least aware of the consequences of their policy on biodiversity and vice versa, on the biodiversity loss on the policies. We can bring together this group of experts from the different policy DGs with the scientific experts to discuss really specific issues. And then finally, as I said, to provide also the material that is supported that is used by the policymakers to really set up and design the policies. You will have, I'm happy to share, of course, the links and the slides after this talk. So we have here this action tracker where basically the colleagues from the Commission report on the progress towards more than 100 actions to see where we are in almost near real time. And this dashboard, which is showing progress towards the 16 targets. Again, these are mainly data coming from Eurostat, also I think from the GRC, but mainly from the European Environmental Agency. So report this automatically on a regular basis in the systems. So these are basically web services talking to each other. But there's a lot of work, of course, in preparation of the indicators. The interlinkages between policies and complex topics, you will find also on the website some analysis on what has been done at the policy level by the Commission, by the experts. We try to bring this in a coherent way together. It's by far not exhaustive, but I think it's a good exercise in understanding the landscape and the complexity of policies and biodiversity again. Then we have, as I said, this capacity, this mandate in a way to bring the different actors around the table. The Commission is a complex body. We want to make sure that all these things are happening as transparently and as fast as possible. Setting up technical groups is usually something that is a long process. Here we can quickly actually set up groups for a very short time. It can be just the time of a workshop or sometimes for a longer term process, like a few years when you're really developing something together. We have this capacity to bring together all the actors. And that's the benefit of the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, is to have this one-stop shop in terms of support regarding a topic that is extremely transversal across all the policies. And this is really the reason of being of the Knowledge Center. Then last but not least, it's the Knowledge Center and the Science Service. As I said, we are around 300 researchers dealing with environmental issues here in ISPRA. We cannot produce all the knowledge that is required to support the policies. We have people working on forests, on whatever, on water, and all these things are, of course, related to the health of our environment. But we need constantly support from external actors. We can do it ourselves through literature review, but very often we need to engage with external experts to help us also bring this knowledge together in a concise way, and also the latest knowledge that is needed. So this is where there was this idea of having a new science service for biodiversity to support the Knowledge Center. So our expectations from the science service, it's first to answer fast a number of requests. As I said, we already have a work plan, but you constantly get basically new things coming up. We need to be prepared for that. We need help so that we can basically deliver faster on this request. So that's, I would say, is the priority. We have this amazing program, an ambitious program from Horizon Europe with all these projects that has a lot of expertise. But we cannot screen and monitor all the outputs of all these projects. So how can we find out that this latest report produced by Project X is relevant for policies? How is it relevant? So we need really to ease access to this information to really make sure that it's visible, that it's used by the policymakers, and inversely that we know that we have a certain type of expertise in a given project. So sometimes we do follow a few projects that are either key for a specific point in time. Sometimes we come in later. But there's so many of these projects that we really need help to access and engage with them. So this is where we also expect support from the Science Service to map this project, to help us access information in a concise way, to make sure that we can have the fastest and the strongest impact. It's of course to help us with the tools and methods to strengthen science policy interface. Sometimes workshops need to be organized in such a way that you really make sure that everything is organized properly, that the ethics is there, that the right people are around the table, especially when you have antagonistic priorities. We need to make sure that we have the right mechanism in place, and the Science Service could help us, should help us for having the right workflows and models of engaging with the different actors. It's about co-designing and optimizing workflows, again, for knowledge production. Even if AI can do a lot of work nowadays in synthesizing information, again, we count on the Science Service to help us bring these complex issues in a concise way together. And the design of the workflows is key there. Yeah, and then of course, since this is still completely open for discussions, how to make sure that all this information that is used for decision making, for policy making, is available for reuse, for assessing. So we really want to make sure that everything is open access, transparent, accessible by everyone. So where do we store the data? Can we store and really make all this information useful, the models and reports for the benefit of everyone? These are the things that we still obviously struggle with. Then to conclude my presentation, what comes next? So even if we are shaping at the moment the interactions between the Knowledge Center and the Science Service, we are also applying we have applied with the EA, of course, to become a regional support center for biodiversity, following the call of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, to support not only the member states, but European countries in implementing the global biodiversity framework. We have the European Biodiversity Strategy, but also the global one. And there as well, you will see that the roles of these regional centers is very similar to the ones of the KCBD, of the Knowledge Center for Europe. So the idea is really to reinforce actually the links with all the partners and all the actors around. I see this as mainly as an opportunity to actually reinforce our interaction. And so we hope that we again can count on the Science Service to really scale up our work beyond the European dimension. So with this, I will conclude my presentation. Again, feel free to contact us directly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Grégoire, for this speed introduction into the KCBD, the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity. And it's great that you stressed the use of the word "for." Indeed, what we're doing is all for the support of conserving and protecting biodiversity, and that's actually what all these tools and processes and networks are being shaped for, and all the projects as well that we have around the table today are in relation to supporting biodiversity. I do not see any questions in the Q&A, but I may be wrong. Anja, am I seeing the same as you are? Do you have any questions?
No questions in the Q&A.
No questions at the moment. So then you can keep your questions for the final part of this event where we have more time. So if there's any questions that meanwhile still pop up in relation to this Knowledge Center story, then you can put them in the chat for later. I will now continue. I see questions coming in, but for time, we'll keep them for the general session. And I'll pass the floor to the next speaker, which is Kaisa Korhonen-Kurki. Kaisa is a senior research scientist and head of the unit at Syke, the Finnish Environment Institute, and she is co-coordinator of BioAgora. Kaisa is an expert in science policy interaction and transformative change, and has a PhD in social science and environment policy from the University of Helsinki. And Kaisa will present to us the BioAgora approach. Kaisa, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, welcome everybody. Also from my behalf, it's a great pleasure to see so many of you as participants here. So as Ben already told, I'm Kaisa Korhonen-Kurki from Finnish Environment Institute, and I'm a scientific co-coordinator of BioAgora project, which is developing a multifunctional science policy interface for EU biodiversity science strategy, including the building the science service. And let's see if my presentation works. No. Okay, now. Okay, so BioAgora is a five-year EU-funded project, which is building a multifunctional biodiversity science service, including interface, including science service. And as you heard from Gregoire's presentation on Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, it's building a kind of scientific pillar inside of the KCBD. Here in the figure, you see here in the left side, science, and with the Horizon Europe and all the EU projects that you are presenting, forming the important part of the science. And then and the expertise and the knowledge on biodiversity. And then here on the policy side, we have the member states, of course, and different working groups, but of course all the policy DGs within EU Commission, harnessing the knowledge through the science service, through the multifunctional science policy interface. Okay. Yes. And we are not starting from the scratch. You all see, you are probably all, or most of you familiar with this long path of how to improve the science policy interface for biodiversity. Already more than 25 years ago, first efforts were started. Alternate, you're probably members of and aware of the activities Alternate is doing. First EU biodiversity strategy established 2006, and you see many of previous projects dealing with the similar issues, Spiral, OPLA, and so on. And of course, 2012 was a great year when IPBES was then initiated, playing a great role in the science policy interface for biodiversity also in the global level. And here you can see 2020, as Gregor explained, the KCBD was established attached to EU biodiversity strategy. And here you see in the end, couple of the recent projects. There are many, not all of mentioned here, but the COP4CBD, RESPIN, BioAgora, as in particular having a mandate to improve the science policy interaction within this field. Okay, a lot has been done, but still there are challenges, we all understand. We did it within BioAgora, a mapping of challenges for implementing the biodiversity strategy. And all of the challenges that we found are attached to the knowledge, the use of knowledge and the accessibility of knowledge. Horizontal policy coherence, vertical policy implementation playing a big role together with other challenges related to funding, management effectiveness, systemic spatial planning, and a kind of societal engagement in all levels. But we are here talking about the knowledge in particular. Okay. And what then BioAgora, how it aims to approach these challenges? And we have 4 goals. We aim to orchestrate and assess the existing science policy interface networks and actors. We aim to use demonstration cases. The word demonstration case might be difficult to understand in our context of our project, but basically it means the kind of thematic areas within the biodiversity strategy through which we work in BioAgora in testing and developing our activities for the science policy interface. We, of course, aim to promote capacity building and co-learning processes, and in the end, build the fair, functional, transformative science policy interface, which then includes the science service for biodiversity. Okay, if we first look at very shortly the first goal, orchestrate and assess the existing science policy interface networks and actors. There's no, you don't need to be able to read this very complex figure. It's just that we did the mapping as it has been done like maybe 6 years ago before to check the key actors and the interactions. As you can see, it's a complex landscape. And it's much easier to assess and analyze this landscape than really orchestrate it, as you all may understand. But this is the one of the aims of BioAgora project, that we are not only assessing and analyzing, but we are also aiming to orchestrate and really harness the expertise which lies within these project networks and actors for better to get better informed decisions in all the levels of decision making. Okay, and then the demonstration cases, which I said that are kind of thematic areas through which we are working within BioAgora. We have now, BioAgora has been working for 2 years. We've been working with marine, freshwater, nature-based solutions, and pollination demonstration cases. And we are just about to start 3 new thematic areas through which we work, mainly multifunctional landscapes, including a different land use options like agriculture, forestry, spatial planning, so on. Transformative change, which is one of the important targets of the biodiversity strategy, and then scenarios and modeling, where there's a lot going on, as we all know. And what we then do within these demonstration cases, we test the possible functions of the future science service. We have now grouped the possible functions in 3 groups, of which the core is answering and anticipating requests, which means that there, as Grégoire mentioned, that there are increasing number of policy requests coming from the Commission, but there are also might be a different kind of knowledge request from different societal actors. And we are developing the procedures how to deal with those. And my colleague Marie will then continue after me a bit more detail on this. But we have the anticipating requests as well, that we, as a project, we want to develop and understand that why these requests emerge and what might be then coming in the future in the table of any science policy interface mechanisms. So we are doing horizon scanning and research prioritization actions as well. We are creating and supporting active thematic networks, which are those within, in particular, now in the BioAgora phase, those demonstration cases, like forming the multi-actor networks within certain thematic areas and supporting the capacities of actors working in those networks. And in the end, we're transforming the processes, or aiming to test how to transform the processes within and between science and policy, aiming to link back to the policy and biodiversity commitments and mainstreaming of biodiversity in different sectors. And maybe we are a project developing new functions that are not yet identified. Very shortly, I don't go into the details, but the example of horizon scanning activity that is currently going on with our marine demonstration case, where the aim is to kind of map the potentially significant medium long-term threats and opportunities that not yet are well recognized within the field of marine biodiversity. And this is done in collaboration with the several actors, and there are like a public consultation already next month with the expert of the topical network going on. And there, if you want to know more about the marine demonstration case, we have the key people here with us, so you can ask more details. And then if we go to the third goal, which is promote the capacity building and co-learning processes for inclusive and functional science policy interface, we did a kind of extensive mapping on capacity gaps of the actors working in science policy interface, and found out that, of course, the different actors have a different kind of capacity gaps. And we have layered them into 5 layers, which are, of course, interrelated. And when we are aiming to, or when we are planning and implementing new capacity development activities within the about the science policy interface skills, it's then we can think about, and with this help of this figure, to tailor them, that we could sometimes the gaps are in the institutional support. Of course, we know that there's no funding for SPI activities that much, or it's really the personal time management of a person, and so on. And again, giving an example from marine case, where there's been a very active creation of thematic network around marine topic, and the core has been the 15 selected Horizon Europe funded research projects, of which many might be there among the participants. So this clustering activity of forms a kind of core of a topical thematic network that then engages other actors, researchers and other societal actors, and then building the capacities within this network is one of the goals of those demonstration cases. And now, for example, capacity building is also done through different initiatives like International Council for Exploration of Sea, have like regular meetings and side events. But also there are capacity building on science policy interface skills that are particularly then planned and executed by BioAgora, and you will hear more of those examples from my colleagues' presentations just after me. And then, in the end, our final, one of the main goals is, of course, to develop a fair, functional, and transformative science policy interface, which then includes the setting up the science service for BioAgora. And as I aim to explain, we do this through harnessing the lessons learned from those demonstration cases, those thematic areas where we have the different kind of activities that we test. That would this work for answering for policy requests? Would this work for building a topical network around this topic that we could then harness the expertise and the knowledge from different actors, not only the scientific actors, but also the other experts within the area. And we aim to do this through co-development and collaboration with multiple actors, including, of course, you in the audience. And then the science service will have a business plan, how it will operate in the long term, how things are then when the BioAgora project has ended and when the science service should be then operational. What is the governance structure, how it will be organized, but for sure there will be an interactive and widely accessible web platform which would enable and engage the relevant actors for the science policy interface. But I want to everybody to understand that it's not only that the Future Science Service is not only the web platform that will stay after the BioAgora, but it certainly have and should have activities that are interaction between the people, because this is what science policy interface is. And in the end, of course, BioAgora aims to contribute to transformative change. We all understand that the systemic change is needed in the science policy interface as well. And the science policy interface mechanisms can have a key role, as we saw that the knowledge and availability and the use of knowledge is one of the key aspects and challenges in implementing the biodiversity strategy. So how we understand the knowledge and how it has been used in decision making can have a major difference. And we have a component of transformative change in a project. We are testing also the potential of transformative potential of those functions that are then carried out within the demonstration cases. We need to increase the collaboration, as this event is one example of start of this work. But to aim for a change, we also need to a little bit challenge and disrupt the ways how we are thinking and acting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kaisa, for this introduction on the BioAgora project and the approach, and also I think for stressing this role in the transformative change that is asked for and the systemic change that is asked for. I think that's clearly coming from the European Green Deal and also the biodiversity strategy asking for this change, and also as why I refer to this for biodiversity conservation is a strong component of that. Just sharing with you maybe some kind of admitting that when the biodiversity strategy came out, it called for this ratcheting up of biodiversity commitments. I had to look it up, actually, ratcheting up. What does it mean? But actually, it's stirring up what has already been agreed before to kind of help implement and revitalize these commitments. I see a lot of things happening in the question and answer session, and also many questions being answered in writing in the poll. But I think, Kaisa, there's one question that I would want to bring to you from Guy Duke. He's repeated a number of times the balance between to what extent the science service is top-down, say in terms of policy asking the research community for input, or whether it also allows for innovation coming from the research projects to bring elements into the policy process. Can you reflect a bit on that?
Yes, thanks. A very important question, and good to raise this up. Yes, of course, the kind of maybe the call and the mandate that we got as a project, and as was emphasized in Gregoire's presentation, was really that this is something which is really needed from policy side. But as science policy interface is an interactive engagement between science and policy, it's equally important to also engage the science community as such that the new ideas and innovations from science will reach the policy. And because as we have, many of us has a expertise or experience on science policy work previously, that the new ideas usually come from science, and it's important that the policy and the decision making is like informed or is aware what is kind of coming on, what are the next questions. And we are doing those horizon scanning activities where the science community is and should be engaged actively. So yes, and sorry if my presentation gave the impression that we are only being reactive, but of course we want to build an interface which is also a proactive from science, from the other way around as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Kaisa, on that. I see also in the questions lots of questions about how to interact. People are very eager to, okay, how can we bring our knowledge in, our projects in? I would ask those to just be a bit more patient because we have one more presentation coming up from Marie, which is exactly on that topic, how you can get engaged and get involved in BioAgora and in bringing your knowledge into this service. So I invite Marie at this stage, and we keep the questions, the remaining questions for after that presentation. Marie van der Walle is a senior scientist and leader of the Biodiversity Science Policy Interface Research Group, mouthful, at the UFZ Institute in Leipzig, Germany. And she's head of the Eclipse management body, also co-coordinator of BioAgora and leader of the work package on underpinning the biodiversity strategy and case studies hub. Her background is in ecology and land use management with a PhD in ecology of the Lund University. Marie, the floor is yours on how we can contribute.
Thank you, Ben, and good morning, everyone. So yes, big task to give you a hint on why and how to contribute. Please note, I will probably say it several times, but it's not exhaustive because we are not even 2 years into the project. But following on Kajsa's presentation, I'd like to now focus exactly to give you what kind of engagement point we have identified so far in order to co-develop with us and with an already very growing network of networks this multifunctional biodiversity science policy interface of Europe, in which a science service for biodiversity will be set up. So again, as you have seen in Kajsa's presentation, our project is based on over 20 years of research and practice in science policy interfaces, during which we have identified key gaps that needs to be addressed at the interface. All this led to the identification of a need for services which the multifunctional science policy interface need to provide to a range of communities, such as, of course, the knowledge holders community, the policy, the science policy interface, and naturally to society. Ultimately, all leading to the setup of a science policy interface at the service of biodiversity. So I don't go into detail of these services because simply you can find all those points on our website. And because also I would like for this presentation to focus on the main services which BioAgora and the future science service are aiming to bring to you as part of the EU-funded research and knowledge community. So why to get engaged, for example, is we are aiming with BioAgora to increase the potential of bringing your research and knowledge into EU policy making. We are also aiming to minimize the duplication of work and the use of resources more wisely by improving synergies between actors, for example, the EU-funded projects. We are also aiming to co-develop an official science policy interface between the EU funder and the EU-funded knowledge community. And of course, we would like to support you in answering the need of ensuring uptake of generated knowledge in your project, which you are often asked to do so during proposal writing, for example. So simply, BioAgora needs your input to support you in the future. So we've identified a number of ways for you to get engaged. I'll go through them in the rest of the presentation in more detail. So the main message, I will say really of my presentation, is that if you are interested, simply please get in contact with us. And also, please contribute to spread the word around the biodiversity community on how to get engaged in BioAgora. So we will go through a few points today, explain you how you can get engaged in our existing demonstration cases, how you can support us to co-develop and pilot new demonstration cases on your thematic. Also, we are building a big, we'll say, community supporting the Future Science Service, which we call the Biodiversity Knowledge Agoras. It will tell you how to join. We also going through the how to join the business plan group, how you can contribute to answering policy requests, and of course, please subscribe to our BioAgora newsletter. So, how to get engaged in our existing demonstration cases? So, the main actually entry point to co-developing the science policy interface for biodiversity is through engaging in our demonstration cases. Demonstration cases are acting as knowledge exchange platforms between science, policy, and society around a specific theme. And so they are platforms around which we are testing the potential function of the science service. So all existing demonstration cases are directly linked to Commission services, such as in DG Environment, the European Biodiversity Platform, and all its subgroups. For example, the demonstration cases on pollination as representatives, as observer in the subgroup pollinator of the EUBP, or the demonstration cases on urban nature-based solution as representative in the subgroup green infrastructure and restoration, and so on. Why get engaged in demonstration cases? I will say at the moment, I will add at the moment, because we are expecting again to co-develop more incentives. But at the moment, we are providing an umbrella framework for project legacy. We provide a path to knowledge exchange with policy and society. We act as a one-stop shop. Those demonstration cases also nurture a more inclusive network and create a community that can engage with policy, such as answering knowledge needs and assessing research priorities. As you can imagine, the themes of the demonstration cases are broad. And in the lifetime of the project, it will be challenging to support every possible network that compose a theme. So as our starting point, as Kaisa's presentation pointed out, is to contribute during the time of the project to improve the implementation of the Biodiversity Strategy 2030. So we are testing our functions with networks that can impact the implementation of the Biodiversity Strategy. Like in this example of the freshwater demonstration cases, where the demonstration cases has the aim, at the moment again, of contributing to build a transformative network of science policy society actors having an impact on restoring 25,000 kilometers of free-flowing rivers, which ultimately aims to contribute to implementing the target 11 of the biodiversity strategy, but also to the nature restoration law, hopefully. So these demonstration cases has now identified 7 challenges for effective implementation of the biodiversity strategy and the nature restoration law target. They are now working in these demonstration cases on establishing a transformative process to assess research priorities that do address real-world societal challenges. One of the functions that demonstration cases are also testing is capacity building. And we are currently putting in place a science policy interface pilot training under the freshwater demonstration cases, inviting both policymakers and scientists working on freshwater for an entire week in the Drôme River Valley from the 23rd to the 27th of September. And the main aim of this training is to build a model of a transformative science policy interface training, which could be then be used by any thematic network. And the objectives for this transformative science policy interface training in the future are multiple, and we expect that it will catalyze mutual understanding and trust between scientists and policymakers to co-create an innovative way to transform interactions. But also we are expecting it to developing participants' competencies to have more impact in their professional environment in terms of inclusion and inter/transdisciplinary. And please note that we have an info webinar on this pilot training and a call for interest on May 6th at 1 o'clock. Please get into a contact with us as well if you want to know more. As I just said, we won't be able in the lifetime of the project to set up as many demonstration cases as will be needed to contribute to the implementation of the whole biodiversity strategy. So for this, we are counting on you. And the aim of the first series of demonstration cases is to extract lesson learned, to co-develop a blueprint for any other network and to give them guidance on how to get organized to support the science service for biodiversity. So if none of the current demonstration cases in BioAgora are of interest for you, well, just link up with us and we will help you getting started from 2025 onwards. So, of course, in parallel, we are working on developing the broader community. So a network of networks that will be supporting the science service, which is encompassing all, of course, demonstration cases, networks of networks. Please note that for the early career researchers among you or the one you know in your project, we are working on a transdisciplinary network of early career scientists. This is very much an initiative of our early career researchers in BioAgora, and more information will be soon provided on our website. How to join the business plan group? So, of course, as part of setting up the science service, we are developing a business plan to ensure the sustainability of the science service. This will specify elements such as primary user groups, service offered, resources needed to deliver the services, and of course possible revenue streams to cover these resources. We will soon open a call for interested parties to join our business plan group through different BioAgora channels. But if you can't wait, please just contact us. I will give you our contact detail at the end. Okay, so another way to get engaged is through specific functions, such as here, the answering request support function, which is meant to improve the support of decision-making through the provisions of relevant knowledge on a request-driven basis. The objective is to provide consolidated views on specific topics and to make use of all relevant types of knowledge. And this function is addressing both urgent, meaning short-term expertise needs, as well as in-depth, therefore more long-term expertise needs. So how is this function expected to work with the European Commission? So through the ticketing system of the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, any Commission service will be able to submit a request for knowledge to the Science Service for Biodiversity. Once the request is received, the Science Service will start scoping it in order to clarify, refine, and reformulate the policy relevant knowledge needs by iteratively dialoguing with the requesters. This scoping phase will vary in duration, and therefore in depth depending on the timeline given by the requester to receive the result. As mentioned earlier, we have identified two types of request process depending on the duration and the types of needs behind the request. So we have an urgent request process lasting anything between a few weeks up to 7 months. Why the need behind this urgent request process is because advice or knowledge needs in policy can arise at short notice. And in this case, quick and sound scientific input or knowledge input is needed since in-depth or state-of-the-art reviews may, of course, provide well answers, but that may come too late. So the second process is what we call the in-depth request process, and it aims to provide consolidated view from science, including different types of knowledge. And why a longer process is because there will always be different arguments and positions vying for attention and influence. However, there is a need for consolidated views from science, taking into account different disciplinary perspective, different type of methodology, and also explicitly including diverging views as necessary in knowledge assessment processes. For this type of request, BioAgora at the moment is planning on mainly using the Eclipse mechanisms, which was created in 2016 to provide evidence on policy relevant topic, and of course support making better informed decisions when it comes to biodiversity. But you have to know, however, that the goal during the BioAgora project is to explore and better understand the landscape of knowledge brokering mechanisms and how we are going to be able to interlink those knowledge brokering mechanisms to support the science service for biodiversity. This is the example of the first in-depth request, which was submitted through the ticketing system by DG Environment, who wants to have an evidence report on the cumulative impacts of offshore wind farms on marine biodiversity. We are at the moment towards the end of the scoping phase in Eclipse, and recently opened a broad open call for knowledge. And good news is that the deadline was supposed to be the 12th of April, but we have deliberately left the feedback form open so that people from the audience who would like to participate can still do so this week. So please, if you have knowledge on the topics or know any initiatives project to do, please check on the Eclipse website on how to get engaged. This is now the example of our first urgent request received. This was again submitted through the KCBD ticketing system, again by DG Environment. They wanted to better understand the relationship between deadwood and risk of fire in European forest. With 14 interdisciplinary experts involved, the whole process for answering took 2 months, and were able to influence on time the negotiation of the nature restoration law. However, the model to answer this particular request did fit the needs expressed. We felt we could explore other models to ensure to mitigate the risk associated with any urgent processes and make such processes more transformative. So another good news is that we are currently developing another model, as I pointed out, of urgent request that we are planning to test. And this is a prototype of knowledge brokering mechanisms tailored to the EU-funded research and knowledge community, which you all belong to, and which will aim at answering, again, as I say, urgent expertise needs. What you see on the slide are preliminary ideas on how this prototype could be tested, and we would warmly welcome your feedback in a survey that will be sent out as a follow-up to this webinar. But just for you to see a difference with the previous slide I showed you, the addition to the general process is that during the scoping phase, we will identify a series of key relevant questions that will be asked directly to the whole EU-funded community while opening an open call for knowledge to the broad community. And then relevant projects will answer the series of questions to the best of their state of knowledge while a group of experts selected from the EU-funded community will be created so that they can start synthesize the harvested knowledge through this survey. And this group of experts will produce a tailored product that will be communicated to the requesters. An important aspect, as for in-depth request, we'll say, is the impact evaluation, where the requester will be asked to have feedback meetings with the expert group. Why engage in urgent request process? Why we think it may be interested for you is that we are expecting that it will contribute to answer policy relevant knowledge request, of course, and that you will be able to learn about policy relevant processes. You will be able to respond to your project need of maximizing its societal impact. It will offer the opportunity to further your pathway to impact by coming together with other projects to address key urgent policy needs identified by the Commission in support of the implementation of the biodiversity strategy. You will also, importantly, not be asked for any new work for this answering request support function. It will be primarily about mobilizing existing knowledge or expected project output. Okay, so to summarize, I hope you understood that there are multiple ways to get engaged in BioAgora and to make a difference. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. But we hope that you will get engaged in our existing demonstration cases to share your knowledge, to build capacity, to build your network. We are hoping that you will be interested in co-developing and piloting new demonstration cases. For this, we do have actually cascade funding to support this process. And we hope that you will join the BioAgora Knowledge Agora. The Biodiversity Knowledge Agora, join our business plan group, contribute to answering policy requests. There will be call for knowledge, there will be call for expert coming for different requests we are receiving. And again, please subscribe to our BioAgora newsletter and our mailing list to ensure that you receive invitation to all our events and activities. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, as this list is meant to grow while we develop all the functions of the science service. So yeah, thank you very much. We hope that you will be interested in co-developing a European science policy interface that will work for you.
Thank you very much, Marie, on that very positive note as well. This is a growing co-designing network indeed. I think it's clear from your presentation that this is very much work ongoing. Nearly 2 years down the road with BioAgora project and a few more years to go. And indeed, the key task is to develop all these functions and to make sure that there is a good body available to respond to requests and to provide innovation and to make sure that there is a good fundament to support biodiversity relevant policy in Europe. So thanks for that. I see in the questions that actually there's a very active responding going on to many of the questions being asked. So that's fantastic to see. I just pick out some of them which have already been addressed, but because also you, Marie, responded to it. And meanwhile, I call to everybody to put in more questions to all the speakers, anything that you heard of so far. But an element that I picked up from the questions is also, do we also cover the nature restoration law, for example? I think the answer is clearly yes. It's the biodiversity strategy and beyond, actually, that is being addressed by the science policy interface and the science service. Clearly, the first is the biodiversity strategy and its components, including therefore the nature restoration law. But also biodiversity related. So other policies which have an impact on biodiversity or have benefit perhaps from biodiversity. I think it's wider than only biodiversity conservation. So let me have a look at any outstanding questions. So it's a long one. Let me question. This is specific for RESPIN. Okay, so this is, I think, a question also in relation to how to get involved with capacity building, with training, and so on, and to bring in tools. So I leave it to my colleagues to respond to that. But I think from the presentation that Marie also just gave, it's clear that there will be many elements that will allow you all to join in, not only through by the obvious join the newsletter. That will be a good channel for you to get engaged and to know when we are calling for people to join an event or to bring in their knowledge, but also proactively. I think I ask for all the participants to proactively share with us any kind of capacity building, training, publications, reports, whatever you have with this community, because it's going to be a growing community. It's currently starting with the demonstration cases. We've seen seven themes being covered, but that does not cover all of the imaginable themes that relate to biodiversity. So that will be a growing pool. For the blueprint is being developed to extend that pool and to bring in other themes with the same kind of protocol or process to make sure that we have a good basis to provide the service that is required for. We have another look. Anja, are we having other questions that we need to address by the group?
I think we can also start with an open discussion.
So indeed, if people would want to raise hands and just ask a question directly to any of the speakers or in general, or share something with the group, this would be a good moment to raise your hand. You will be given the floor. Most of the other questions I see is in relation to how to get engaged. That's through the website, the newsletter, the email address. There was reference to the business group and to the stakeholder group. They called the Biodiversity Agora, Knowledge Agora. For those, calls are in the making, but if you are really eager to join in, let us know. Let us know that you have relevant information for us to build on and to help us develop these processes, because that's what this whole process is about. It's a joint effort. Are there any more questions from the group? Is everything clear to everyone? If not, I see a hand raised by Grégoire. Grégoire, you have the floor.
Yeah, African question that I saw in the chat that I hear around us constantly, that is on the table, is what happens with all the material that is produced, or what should happen with all the material produced by all this research funded by the EU that is relevant to biodiversity, and this is really a real challenge. We are not speaking about hosting information that is produced like a bucket with just reports, data, and models. These things need to be curated, and this is something where I'm really strict about, is that it doesn't make sense to have a big bucket with all these things. I mean, it has its value, and you have lots of repositories online that can help doing so. And we have, and I would actually recommend everyone to follow the recommendations of the IPBES task force on data and knowledge on where to host these things. I was part of this task force, and I would basically try to streamline these processes there. But one thing is to host somewhere in these public repositories that have at least the mandate to host for and the resources to host for the long-term information. The other one is really to store this information and to make it, to provide a service, and a service is not only redistributing information that has been produced by others. It's really to make sure that the information is up to date, that it's reused, that it's curated, and this is something that requires significant political willingness to change the course of the current situation, which I think is completely crazy. We have constantly new initiatives of building new platforms, new technical systems for modeling things the fragmentation of the landscape is worse than ever. It's really a challenge. I really see that these new regional centers for biodiversity might actually help federate a bit the existing efforts. We need to put certain things together, but again, you need, I keep repeating this constantly in all my presentation, you need really the 4 key elements to really ensure sustainability of this. And the first one is, of course, the scientific competences, the technical competences, because most of the things we're talking about actually require large infrastructure in terms of information. One thing is to host information, the other one is process the services, put up services in place that can help you access this information. This is not something that is very straightforward. And I really know what I'm talking about because we do this for years. Then the mandate. You can put the most beautiful platform on earth. If you don't have the mandate to produce and manage and host this information, it's not going to be used for policy support. It's as simple as that. And then the last one, it's related to all the 3 other ones. It's the nerve of all this is the funding. You can have all the beautiful plans, the science, the technology, but technology is usually linked also to resources. You still need the funding of the people who can manage that. So before we propose new things and put things on the table for hosting and managing this long-term huge collection of resources that is available, that will become available, we really need to have a solid plans and we need to have this address at the highest level. Those who are involved in Natura Connect, it's a big, sorry, in Europe, know the effort of trying to come up with a strategy to host data for the monitoring, to provide the services associated to monitoring biodiversity. It's under discussion. It's supported by the Parliament. We are currently setting up a coordination center for monitoring biodiversity, but we still need to put in place the infrastructure, ensure that the roles of everybody is clear. It's a huge endeavor, and we cannot waste resources by fiddling around doing small things. We really need to have a strategy that is put on the table at the highest level. So I say it's really as our role in the Knowledge Center to make sure that it's happening at some points, but we're not going to waste our efforts in fixing here and there a few things for the short-term purposes. We cannot afford that. So yeah, we need to be ambitious and hope for the best.
Thank you, Igor, for sharing that and ambitious vision indeed and requirement. I see, meanwhile, some more questions. There's some technical questions in the Q&A as well. But so I think I'll pick out the last one. How can the Science Service ensure to identify the key knowledge holders are included? And that's, I think, relating to what we heard about the demonstration cases, for example, where we are specifically focusing on mapping the right knowledge holders for the specific themes and reaching out. But also, obviously, the event like this is to reach out to you and to ask you to reach out to others, and that we jointly can help identify who has the relevant knowledge for questions coming up or for bringing in new ideas with the horizon scanning or innovation or what have you. So it's a growing pool of content as well. Does anyone from the colleagues of BioAgora want to add anything to this? Not, maybe I see also a question on metadata and interoperability of data tools and methods, and I'm wondering if Paul would be the right person to give a little response to that component. Paul, are you there?
Don't get me started on that topic. That's
Cool.
That's the rest of the day gone. But yeah,
2 minutes.
it's a key point. I'd just like to mirror that. I do tend to find myself agreeing with Gregoire most of the time when he speaks on these sort of topics as well, just to mirror what he said before. So in MBS Task Force 1, which is part of Network Nature, we are doing some work on data interoperability. We're starting small with MBS indicators, and if that goes well, that's a pilot that could be applied to other forms of biodiversity indicators as well. The data challenge is kind of a wicked problem. It's a very big challenge to solve, but I feel like as a community we're making steps towards that. I think the Science Service has a really key role to play in that. We've got very active participation from BioAgora in the MBS Task Force 1. Yeah, I can't give a short, easy answer on that, I'm afraid, other than that I think it's something we really need to be pushing towards. There's a lot of talk around AI and how AI can help solve some of these challenges going forward. We're not there yet with AI. It's something we're looking at Opla, and it's something I'm sure JRC and others are working towards as well. But that's a bit further into the future, and we have an immediate problem to solve, which is creating better evidence for decision making. So yeah, I think the Science Service is a great opportunity, and it's a great resource to put to solving that challenge.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks indeed. And indeed, as you said, AI is very exciting process going in parallel with our development. So curious what the future is. Any other responses from the group before we go to another poll, perhaps?
Ben, I can maybe.
Yes, Marie, please.
Sorry, Ben, we had an issue with our mute button because we are in the same room with Kaisa, so we were muting for answering and it didn't work.
Okay.
So apologies for this about how to identify expert. I hope you understood that we will have different models, especially in the case of the answering request support function. And just to give you an example for the one that will be tailored to your community, especially for answering the urgent requests. So as I mentioned, we will identify together with the requesters key question that will be sent to a number of identified EU projects that will be relevant on the topic. And inside those EU projects, they will be asked to answer this question. And as you know, most of the projects are, it's also already a multi-range of factors, and we are hoping then this way that those questions will be answered internally in those EU projects and then feedback to our questionnaire. So again, all those questions will be synthesized by a group of experts also selected from those EU projects. So this is one way. But again, we are planning on establishing different type of models for this answering request function. And I can already answer maybe the one that Eclipse is taking care of. Because when we receive a request, we also do the scoping, as you know. And during the scoping, together with the requester, we identify the key discipline, the key expertise that will need to be part of the expert working group that will synthesize the knowledge. Okay, and so it means that when we do a call for expert, we kind of target what kind of discipline and expertise we are aiming for, including non-academic expertise. And so it's quite clear the group, kind of group we want to set up in order to ensure that the request is answered in all its aspects. So I hope it gives you some hint on how we identify experts.
Okay, thank you very much for that detail, Marie. And indeed, yeah, for the audience to realize you are in the same room as Kaisa and as Grégoire by coincidence. You're actually visiting the KCBD at this very moment, which is quite a coincidence. We're not all in the same room, despite our nice same backgrounds. Obviously, we're spread across Europe. I'm based in the Netherlands, and actually there the dark clouds are making room for sun. I think that's a very good sign to end this event with a very shiny, maybe we'll have a rainbow even. I think it's time for another poll, just because we're kind of approaching the end of this event. We'll have one more person that will speak to us. But before giving the floor to Gilles, I want to ask all of you to assess how useful this session was for you, knowing that in the beginning, most of you had never heard of the KCBD and of not too much of BioAgora. Yes, can you rate from a scale of 0 total not relevant, to 10 really, really essential. How you felt this session, this event helped you. Right, the sun is meanwhile disappearing again. No luck. Okay, I think we can have a look already because there's one more poll I want to share with you. So how are we doing with the votes?
Yes, Ben. So from we have 58 from 105 people vote participated, and
Okay.
I'm sharing the results.
Okay. In general, that looks very positive. I think we passed the test. So that's very nice to know. Also good for you to know is that after this event, there will be you'll get information about where to find the recording and so on, but also a survey, little feedback requirement, but also on how you can get more concretely engaged. So that's perhaps helpful for you to know. Can we move to the last poll before I give the floor to Gilles? The last question, as I mentioned before, we do not want you to just sit on the information that you received today, but to share it with others. So we just want to have an impression on who you will inform first about the BioAgora information that you received today, or about the Knowledge Center. Who are you intending to share your knowledge with about this event or this process? And this is obviously a limited selection. There might be others, but we don't have the option to say other at this stage. And it's raining again.
Okay, Ben.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's fine with me.
from 58 people voted, 55% participation.
Nice.
I'm sharing the results.
Okay, yes, starting in your own department and your own projects. That's, I think, a great way to start, and from there, other networks as well. Obviously, this is not limited. This is mainly to trigger you to think about who you can share this information with. Also use your own channels from your projects, your newsletters and what have you to talk about this and to invite others to join in. I will give now the floor to Gilles Doignon to end the session. Gilles Doignon is a team leader of biodiversity and nature-based solutions at the European Commission's DG Research and Innovation, and has a background in marine zoology. And we've asked Gilles to reflect a bit on this event and on the process. Gilles, are you there with us?
Yes, thank you, Ben. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So yeah, I will give some personal reflection, I would say. As we all know, the complex, the landscape about biodiversity governance and science is very complex. But actually, biodiversity is very complex and touches so many topics and so intimately linked to what we are and our future that it's a big challenge. And I would like to refer to a quote of my late Professor Raymond Rasmont at the University of Brussels. He used to say that it's impossible to know something you do not know. And actually, with all the projects, all the experts on biodiversity, each of us, we know something. And the big challenge with the creation of the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity and now the Science Service for Biodiversity is really to increase the cooperation, collaboration, so that we really exchange what we know. And actually, this is very, very important because at the EU level, for any policy we would like to develop or implement, we need science. Science is the basis, should be the basis. So we need to join forces. We need your expertise. So to all the attendees, all the projects. And when we look at the global biodiversity framework adopted in 2022, we have a vision, we have a mission on a global scale, very ambitious commitments But honestly, there is no time to waste. We are in a catastrophic situation. Biodiversity is collapsing, so we need to act. So this is what we are trying to do on the research policy interface on biodiversity. And actually, when you look at all the different projects, EU-funded projects linked to biodiversity, the landscape is patchy. There are hundreds of EU-funded projects linked to biodiversity. And it's not only the EU-funded projects, you have also the projects by Biodiversa Plus, you have also the projects in the member states. We really need to join forces. And each project is a little bit like a piece of a puzzle. Ahead of the COP15, the DG Environment used an image of the different species, each species being a piece of the puzzle. It's a little bit the same with all the projects we have. So we really have to coordinate. On our side, DG Research, and in collaboration with the executive agency, so the Research Executive Agency, the European Research Council Executive Agency, SINER, we are really trying to normalize and to provide this information to BioAgora, to help BioAgora setting up the Science Service for Biodiversity, sorry. So we start to build clusters of projects. We start to have some categories, thematic categories. So one on marine, one on nature-based solution, one on forest, etc. This is what we need to develop all together, and we have to be on the same line. So really to join the forces with the work of BioAgora, with the demonstration cases. It will take time, but this is what we want to do. We will also, well, we started on our side to develop the long-term strategic research agenda on biodiversity. It will take time too, but it will be developed together with the Science Service for Biodiversity. What is the science the EU needs by 2030, 2040, 2050 to reply to all requests, all challenges? It was mentioned in one of the questions, in theory, most of the Horizon Europe projects linked to biodiversity know that it's a condition to work with BioAgora and the Science Service for Biodiversity. But right now, we really want for the next work programs to ensure that any project linked to biodiversity should have these conditions, so that even if it's indirect link, they know that they could be approached by the Science Service for Biodiversity. For the project before Horizon Europe, because there are still some, we consider it should be a kind of gentleman agreement. So you are there, you are an expert, the Science Service was not mentioned on that time, but please help. There are still Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020 ongoing projects. Also, probably all of you know that as of Work Programme 2026, 10% of the budget of Horizon Europe should go to biodiversity. We are already trying to do that at the level of Work Programme 2025. So the biodiversity is a key topic for us as for climate change. Just to also some messages for you projects. The worst, well, the nightmare, the worst scenario is that you have a project, you have a website, you do an event, you have a Twitter account, you have a small report, and that's it. We don't want that. So we really want any project to work with everybody, with the relevant projects. But also please publish, because then you feed the work of IPBES. And this is very, very important to reflect all the developments in EU research, and so to take into consideration by the global assessment by IPBES. And also for IPBES, please join IPBES when they need experts, so to have an EU representation in IPBES. What I just said about the Science Service and BioAgora, we are saying the same with all the different communities. For example, this morning it was, and it's still the GBIF Biodiversity Symposium on monitoring. We are saying the same message. Let's work all together, join forces. Tomorrow there will be the launch of 33 new projects on monitoring with Biodiversity. This is again something to feed the work of BioAgora. And just to finish, we know it takes time. But really the challenge, the dream is really that as soon as possible, we have all the science we need, so EU funded or not, and that we have a science service for biodiversity ready to react as quickly as possible to any request. So then this is really the role of science, what we are doing all together. And this is how we can help things moving forward for nature and for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gilles. What more to add? It's a great way to end. That leaves me to thank all of you to participate, to actively be with us today, and to join in and to be interactive. And my great colleagues of BioAgora to be there in the back and to support this. So a great experience again. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the day, and hope to meet you soon in the Agora and beyond. Thank you.